Hello folks! Today is Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. My name is Davood and this is the 22nd episode of Keeping It Realistic. These were a lot of 20s. Anyway, in this show, sponsored or in collaboration with Chaos, we review some of the more interesting projects posted in the Chaos Campus Facebook group within the last 2 weeks, talking about their strengths, but also pointing out their weaknesses and suggesting eventual ways to improve them. We also discuss general topics around the group. We take a look at recent announcements, maybe news, or just talk about interesting stuff regarding the visualization field. We do this as a live event so that you can actively participate in the discussions and that we can also interact with each other. I see you're already watching. Hi Helen, yes, I'm back after 2 weeks. I hope you had a good time in the meantime. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know, did you miss me? Did you miss the show? Most of all, personally, it happens on a bi-weekly basis now, and I can tell you that to me personally this feels quite right this way, because first of all it gives you, the viewers, the chance to spend more time concentrating on your own commercial work, on your private life as well, and also in a longer perspective to have more time to also watch the other shows that are going to soon be a part of this group. On my side, it gives me the chance to be active in the group again, to be able to interact with you, talk with you in the chat, give feedbacks also in a written form, and just to chat with you, just to be a part of the group again, which is something that I really enjoy. We'll talk about the group a bit more in a minute. In the beginning, we will do what we always do, and we will take a closer look at the cover image for today's episode. It's really a cool one. I really enjoy it. It has this awesome verticality to it. All of the images, even though they are quite different, have those strong vertical elements to them, which kind of nicely fuses them together. The works were contributed by Alireza, Davood, and Simão. For Alireza and Davood, this is a first feature, so congrats. And of course, also congrats to Simão, for whom I think it's the second one. And with this out of the way, we can actually talk a bit about our group and the community as a whole, because I gotta admit, I was very curious as to how this 2-week gap between the shows will actually reflect in the group. So in the beginning, we started, let's say, 6 months ago, and in the beginning, it felt like a lot of the activity, if this group is dependent on me or on the show. So I wanted to see, now that we go back a step with the show, with it happening every 2 weeks, I wanted to see how active the group is going to be. Does it really rely on me or the Keeping It Realistic show mostly? Or is it that the community we actually all want it to be and we actually profit from? So instead, because, actions speak louder than words, and I think I will prove it. I will just show you stuff. So let's take a look at this one. We have here this work by Mohammed with an awesome, long, detailed feedback by Amit. Really awesome, with lots of points. Makes a lot of sense. Then again, another work, this time by Bruno, with, again, feedback by Amit. Next, we have Blake. Blake's work, he asked for feedback in order to advance, in order to become a better artist. And Janne was there to give him the feedback. Amit and Janne have been very active in providing feedback. So kudos to both of them. Here again, another example, we have Niku, who recreated a really cool room. And just take a look at the comments here. So we have Tilina, we have Hugo, we have Danushka, Janne, just people talking and trying to provide Nico with some further feedback, even though the image is very good already. They were providing some further feedback in order for Nico to make this even better. Again, Amit, Marcelo here said that this is inspired most probably by recreational video by Ander Alenka, who is somebody who we're talking about today. But anyway, I see Douglas joined us. Hi man, glad to have you here. Next, this one is from yesterday, Ravindu's work, a very nice bathroom, but there were some technical inconsistencies. Let's say here you can see it in the small preview. For example, I will enlarge it for you so to see. So we have the shower very, very close to the toilet bowl and the toilet paper holder. The paper holder is actually already in the shower area. This, which means that every time you turn on the shower, you will drench the toilet bowl and the toilet paper in water, which obviously is very, very inconvenient. So these and other things that weren't this great were listed here by John. You see, it's a list of 12 points, which were very, very, very useful. I went through all of them. All of them make a lot of sense. And this is just a fraction of the feedback that was provided within the last 2 weeks. And it hasn't only been just feedback. There was also to images or to rendering question. There was also general questions as to where to get nice furniture or plants from. So we gathered here a few sites where you can buy some nice models. We had also questions about here, Danny's question about nice plants for SketchUp, which is, something a bit of a more special question because there are lots of models for 3ds Max, for example, but not so many for SketchUp. So here Ikichukwu was there to answer the question. Next we have Blake again, this time with a more general question about the best render settings for best photorealism, which obviously is, first of all, a very broad question, and secondly, it's not really something that one can answer with like yes or no or just give the settings. So there were some really nice discussions here. And last but not least, let's not forget our chat, the group chat, the chat to Keeping It Realistic. It has been insanely active with artists just sharing their works. I'll just show you what happened really in the last 2 weeks. You will see it because every week before the show starts, I make an announcement about it. So this was the announcement for the last show exactly 2 weeks ago. And since then, you see how many works have been shared there. Not only works, but also opinions. I'll show you one great example here. It was Amit's question. He was working on this room, which has a bed, a wardrobe, and a drum set. It's quite full. So he was looking for the right angle or the best angle to take a shot at this room. So he made a screenshot. He also drew this arrow to showcase how he imagines the angle to be. Then Flatson joined in and suggested using camera clipping. And you see, this is something which happens while people are working. And you even see Nico's being very excited about this, showing everybody that they rock, because you guys actually really do. You have been very active, and the way this group currently is, it isn't this online archive, this online gallery anymore. Now it is an actual community, and I'm very, very proud of this, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. So thanks for that. You're awesome. You rock. I see Ulfat joined us. Hi, Abdi, Navid. Hello, everyone. Glad to have you on the show. We just talked about the community. Now let's talk about the monthly challenge. We actually don't have a monthly challenge running. The last one we had was for December 23 and January 24. And while it ended up with 3 really great submissions, we have the winner with us today, Abdi. It was only 3 works that were submitted in the end. So one can say not a lot of people participated. And in order to find out why, I started this survey 2 weeks ago. Please don't take it any wrong. This is not a passive-aggressive way of criticizing you for not participating. As you can tell, like already for 22 shows, we have feedback is something that I consider to be extremely important, and I also want to get feedback from you as well, the same way I give you feedback to your works. So in this case, the feedback was meant for the challenge. Hi, Danushka joined us. Hi, man. So this feedback was very important for the challenge. I wanted to find out what's the reason behind not more than 3 people participating in this challenge, even though there were 2 months for you to work with. And judging by the answers here, you can clearly tell that just most of you didn't have time, because the options that I suggested were you're not having enough time, the topic being too difficult, the scope of it just being generally very large, maybe the topic just not being exciting to you, maybe you're not interested in the winter, maybe you live somewhere where there is no winter, then you have the topic is not relevant to me answer option. Maybe the prizes in the end of this challenge aren't just motivating enough for you, or you just simply don't enjoy such challenges. As it turns out, it's just that most of you didn't have the time, even though you actually wanted to participate. There are some really, really cool comments here by Amit, Pedro, Mario, Kirill, Konstantinos. It seems like you wanted this, but it was both you were short on time, and the scale of this project was a bit too large, and maybe it was a bit too difficult because it's an urban scene. There are lots of elements to it. So it's very, very understandable. We also have a few people who just missed the challenge announcement and found out about it too late. Now, this is something which I'm not sure how to react to in general or in future, because I announced this during the show in the beginning of December, and also made an official post in the group, which I pinned atop of it. And on every next show, so every other week, I would also remind you about this challenge happening. So I guess you just gotta watch the show, but maybe in future, just to make sure that really everybody notices it, I will make this initial announcement about the challenges, but also maybe at a midpoint, halfway there, I'll make another one and say, okay, half of the time is true, you still have the other half. If you want to participate, if you have missed it, you still have the chance to participate. And if not, then yeah, you don't have to. But yeah, there is not so much which I can do about this one. But as for the other 2, I think this is really something which, let's go it directly. We're keeping it realistic here, or real here. It was just too much. I didn't quite consider that usually the end of the year, or I partially considered it. This is why I thought that December plus January will probably be enough. But truth is, commercially seen, the end of the year and the beginning of a new one usually is a very busy time. And I myself probably wouldn't have had the time to actually participate in my own challenge, which clearly also shows that it was probably just too large of a scope for this time of the year. So in future, I promise we will try to do better and to give a more suitable scope for the current situation or the current time of the year. And also, we probably won't be having those types of challenges on a monthly basis, because I think it's stressful on both sides. On your side, as the one who are supposed to take part in the challenge, and also on our side to organize it, to find a topic, and all of the things that come with this. So probably in future we won't be doing this like every month, maybe on a quarterly base or something like this. We'll see. However, I have an idea for a more laid-back alternative to those challenges, and I will pitch it to you just a bit later. So yeah, enough about this. I see, I don't know, oh yeah, Alireza and Tomasz joined us. Hello folks. We'll talk a bit about some recent news. Just to quickly mention this, if you're a Maya or a Houdini user, V-Ray 6 Update 2 is out. I watched the video. It's quite cool functions that come with this. If you're a user, gladly check it out. And of course, the big topic, Chaos Next. Last time, it was 2 weeks ago, as we talked about Chaos Next, it was very mysterious. It wasn't clear what is behind this. The only thing we got was this 3D cube. Now, in the meantime, it becomes more and more clear that this is about AI. And I would say it was probably about time, because like it or not, AI is part of our industry in the meantime, and somebody like Chaos had to react to this one. However, it's not only just some general talk about AI, but there are some technologies that seem to be under development at Chaos. And to me, personally, they look really, really, really exciting. So what we have first is texturing via prompt. It's maybe a bit difficult to imagine, but actually could be really, really awesome. If it works the way it is meant to be, it could be really, really cool. It's interesting, of course, where the textures come from, if they're, like, say, procedurally generated by AI. This would be probably an interesting topic for people who make models in order to sell them, because I personally don't do this, but I know that it's a bit of a tricky topic. Let's say you use polygon textures on your models. I don't think you can just, make a model and then sell it somewhere online with the textures from Polygon on it still. So this is a very tricky topic, and it would be very interesting how this PBR rendering works out. Then we have this smart scene population, which is personally, populating scenes is something that I don't enjoy that much. It's usually a tedious job. So if this could be done in an easier way, if we can get a helper with this, I think it would really boost efficiency, and it would actually be pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. Next, we have this style transfer. And this is something which I personally have big hopes in, because if you would ask me to describe the current state of the visualization field, I would say it's mostly photorealistic or not. Like, there are other styles, but they're more for digital art and stuff like that, and less when it comes to actual, let's say, architectural visualization or product visualization. We're just mostly about photorealism, which is okay, of course. It makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, there is so much more to creativity than photorealism. And if, in the meantime, I try to learn some stable diffusion on the side, and I go through all of these models that you can download, and I see so amazing styles there, and it's just awesome to see them. And if I try to imagine some of my own works and some of the projects I have worked on with some of those styles, I think that it could be even cooler than something which is simply photorealistic. So I'm very much looking forward to this one. Alessio says D5 have a tool who make PBR from reference and works very well. This is, something like this. I know this. I don't know how it is about, again, when it comes to AI, we have this big topic with rights and licensing and crediting and so on. But I imagine something like that as well. Now we have this lifestyle image. As far as I can imagine it, we have just like an object, let's say this chair, and we can then, with the help of AI, we can put it in different situations, which is incredibly convenient. If it works as good as shown here, it could be really, really cool and a huge time saver. Material aging simulator is something I very much look forward to, because I often find that things that we visualize are way too clean, and having this aging simulator would be something great, especially if you can control how much, let's say, a certain building that you visualize is aged. Because most of the time we visualize something which still isn't being built. So it makes sense for it to look new, but when it looks too new, sometimes it's almost foreign to its surroundings. And with the help of an aging simulator like this, where you can just say, let's make it like an year old, new, then it would be actually pretty cool, because there would be maybe some slight leaks, some slight dirt here and there, but this would be all, and it will still look fairly new, but not like artificially new. Hi Rita. Rita joined us. Hi Rita. Next, we have voice interface. I'm not sure about this one. I'm not the type of person who has great experiences with this talking with machines. You know how you can call some companies and let's say you want to talk about your electricity bill, and then the robotic voice goes, what is the purpose of your call? And then you're like, yeah, electricity bill. And then it's like, I didn't understand you. And this is usually my experience when I do something like this. So I don't know how it is. I mean, just imagine having a quarrel with Corona, like region render. And then Corona goes, there are no pigeons in this. I don't know. It's maybe not for me. I'm not a big talker with Cortana, Google, Siri, Alexa, or whatever. But for some people, it may actually be very convenient. Now, the set extender sounds like something like a generative feel, but in 3D, which would be actually pretty awesome if it works. The historical asset learner is something, as far as I get it, which learns from the way you approach certain situations and then tries to do it the same way or in your style in future, which is great. And of course, this is absolutely one of those last but not least situations. We have intelligent lighting optimizer. So you know how important, how essential light is to our scenes and to everything that we do when it comes to rendering. So having something like this sounds amazing. So gladly let me know how you feel about all of this. Are you excited? And let us just check it out. Again, it's next Tuesday, exactly in a week from now. I will certainly be there, and I hope to see you there as well. Simon says, haha, let's use voice and AI makes a pigeon render. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's just not the right thing for me, but everything else seems really, really, really exciting, and I can't wait for this event to happen, to be honest. Next, when it comes to learning, we have this tutorial. It's about chair modeling. You see the chair that you'll be modeling by Konstantinos from Mesh Mastery. It's an awesome tutorial. It's not even 20 minutes. I watched it. Everything is very clear about it. As far as I know, second part is in the making, which is about the unwrapping and the texturing of this chair. So gladly go watch it. I'll just drop it in the comments right now. Gladly go watch it. Drop Konstantinos or Mesh Mastery a like, maybe follow them and do everything to support them, because it's always great when somebody, also gives back to the community. Same with Tihan. He uploaded this render into the group. It's this nice snowy cabin with very nice lighting mood to it. If you want to know how to create this scene, there is an actual tutorial on YouTube by Cihan. It's in Turkish, but you can just start those automatically translated subtitles in English in order to understand it, or in your own language. And it's, I think, an hour and a half or something, but you learn how to do this scene from scratch. So again, big thanks to Cihan, and yeah, go follow, drop him a like. And last but not least, our friends Bartosz and Arthur at the Common Point shared the second part of this night rendering lessons. The first part was the theoretical part, and this one is the practice. So as usual, go watch it. It's wonderful knowledge provided by those two, and as always, big thanks to them for sharing. With this, we're at the end of the learning. No, we're not. I'm sorry. The one thing which is very important, and it happens in 2 days, it's the Archviz Masterclass with creative lighting with Nikos and Chaos. I think that more than 3,000, I don't know how many people are part of this in the meantime. It's a big, big event, and there is great stuff to learn there. Personally, I have already attended the masterclass by Nikos. This is why I didn't attend the first 2 lessons, but this one I think I will check out. So hope to see you there as well. Don't forget this one. And with this being said, let me just quickly pitch you the idea of those tasks instead of challenges that I told you about. I haven't discussed this with Chaos or anything. It's just my own idea that came a few days ago. And it's something very unofficial. It's not a challenge. It's not something with prizes or something like this. No deadlines. It would be a laid back thing, but it's more like a training task. So the idea of this is it will be about photography. Because, in our scenes, what we usually do is, in the first part is we start modeling, texturing, and doing all this technical work. And then in the second part, we actually turn into virtual photographers and start going around taking photos. And this is what this task or this series of tasks will be about. You have to photograph something in a good way, in an attractive way, so that you can, let's say, sell it to others or make it attractive or present it in an attractive enough way so that others kind of like it. So again, it's not a challenge, it's not a competition, it's just for you to train, to go into this situation actually and see it firsthand. So all you will need to do will be your smartphone. I assume most of you have a smartphone with a camera on it. If you have a digital camera or a drone or whatever, you can of course use it as well, but we want to keep it simple here, so a smartphone will be more than enough. And I'll also try to integrate the ideas for those tasks into our everyday life, because I will also gladly participate into these tasks in order for all of us to exercise. So yeah, the idea would be just to photograph certain topics and then share them with the community in order to become an actual photographer for a certain amount of time, but without going too much out of your way as you have to do with the challenges, to spend days or week working on this. It will be something that you can do in an hour or something. And again, there will be no deadlines whatsoever. And once we have like a few images and so on, I will probably talk about them here in the show. So if you can gladly let me know if you're generally interested in something like this, and if so, I will prepare the first task until the end of this week, and then I will share it with you so that we can start going through it. And again, I will be the first one to start taking those photos I'm talking about, so that you can see what I mean, and then you can just try creating something on your own. And with this being said, I think we had this half an hour block after 2 weeks. It makes sense that it takes a while to talk about this general stuff around the group, and not only in the first half an hour, and then jump into the projects, which is what we'll be doing next. You know the new rules. In order to not have the show be too long, we had limited the projects I'll be talking about at 7. It could even be less if the projects have a large scope to them. For today, I have prepared 7 projects to talk about. Let's see, maybe we won't make the show in 1.5 hours. Maybe it would be in 2 hours. But on the flip side, next week there is no show. So yeah, you're still saving time. With this being said, without any further ado, I think we can jump in the group. And again, you can always let me know how do you feel about the idea of those new tasks, which are supposed to be way more laid back, way more chill, and more about learning rather than actually, producing stuff. And now let's go into the group and begin with the first project for today, which is a project by Alireza. He is with us, he's watching, he's in the comments, I saw him earlier. You may have seen this work of his shared by the Chaos Corona team. Congrats on that, Alireza. It always feels amazing. It happened to me a few times, and every time I enjoyed it and absolutely made my day. Let's see what you have to say about this project. It's called Oak Hill House. The architects are Matière Première Architecture. 3D modeling and rendering is done by you and Max Corona with the help of Quixel Megascans. The location is Bromont, Canada, and it's a fairly a mid-sized house, I would say, with 238 square meters. Now, the description to your project is really good. We know the project type, we know the software combination, everything about this is clear. Given that this is the first project of yours that we talk about in this show, let me tell you that you're always more than welcome to share some general info about the project. The Chaos Campus is an educational community, so every additional information that you're willing to share is more than welcome. So let's say you can talk about what the actual task here was, obviously to visualize the house, but how was it meant for you to visualize the exterior and interior areas? Did you decide to do so? How did you decide to approach the whole visualization process, for example? Also, what was challenging to you along the way? Even for seasoned artists, some stuff can just turn out to be difficult or challenging while doing their work. So this is something that you can always gladly share in your project description. Regarding the images themselves, this is the second thing that I always look at in the beginning when a project has more than 1 or 2 images. It's how they are presented. And in this case, I really like the variety that we see here, because we have this cool switch between exterior and interior. This makes for a very lively presentation, for an exciting one that one wants to click on, because I don't know what to expect once I click on this +6. Generally speaking, when you have 2 different lighting moods, I'm not a huge fan of this. I think that one should really decide for one and run with it if the difference between the lighting moods isn't a big one. Like if you have a day mood and an evening mood, then you have such a big difference that you have almost different images. But if you have a slight difference, like relatively speaking, like you see in this case, we have one without like an overcast lighting and then a sunny light, then I think you can just go choose one and then just run with it. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the photos. While we scroll through them, we can talk a bit about general stuff, which is that I think most of the times artists, especially single artists, tend to concentrate more on interior or exterior and also be better in it. Like large studios, obviously they have different artists or different teams, and when there is a larger project, the team works on the interiors and another team works on the exteriors, and then they fuse everything together and both have great or very similar quality. But single artists usually have something like a main focus, which is either interior or exterior. This is why sometimes we see people whose work we actually very much appreciate. Let's say their interiors, they are very photorealistic or very nicely composed and everything is pretty cool, and suddenly they show an exterior and it's pretty mediocre, so to speak. But in this case, we have a very balanced mix of both interior and exterior, which is pretty great and also kind of seldom. Still, if I had to guess, I would say that your main focus is actually exteriors, because the exterior here is just so awesomely pulled off. And generally speaking, we just went through the images. I think that both the modeling is really good with the right amount of detail. Also, the materials look very great to me. They go together well. You have this very pleasant earth tone color scheme. The interior color palette is also very, very nicely set so that it doesn't take the attention away from what's important here. And this is, of course, the surroundings, because nobody builds a house in the forest who actually doesn't like the forest. People go live there because they enjoy the solitude, they enjoy this close proximity to nature and so on. So it makes sense that the interior design, like you see here, is kind of almost secondary. You see that there are no bold colors, nothing which is like a huge eye catcher, because what actually counts, what is important for this project, is what happens beside this, on the outside of this glazing. The material transitions, this is something that I really got to mention. Let's go back to the beginning. The material transitions work really, really fine. If you decide to share a bit of your knowledge or the workflow or something, make a tutorial about this, it will be really, really greatly appreciated. Scattering also looks awesome. The nature feels natural. It feels relatable and right. The lighting is also very pleasant. There are two versions. Personally, I prefer the sunny version because it has this very positive, nice vibe to it. And now I would suggest let us take a look at the shots one by one. Starting with this one, which we have in two versions, the sunny one and the overcast one. Now, first of all, something which immediately becomes visible is the insanely realistic detail in the foreground. In the beginning, I thought it's maybe AI, maybe some stable diffusion here, but if we compare the overcast and the sunny shot, it quickly becomes visible that this is actually the same scene, the actual model. And as far as I know, so far, it's not possible for stable diffusion to actually keep the same artificially generated materials, or let's say street in this case, and only change the lighting of it. Alessio says, don't know if Alireza is here, but I want to ask if the terrain it's bump plus displaced texture or if it's modeled. I mean, I think it's a mix of both. Like the main landscaping is modeled, but this here should actually be bump plus displays, but maybe also some texture blending. So I don't think this is just like a simple texture, but it could also be. There are really amazing textures in the meantime. Next, we have very nice framing on this shot. Just to be clear, because, you know, we talk about the projects of certain artists, or we talk about certain projects, but while doing so, it's always nice to talk about general topics as well. And I want you to know that a shot like this isn't about the house, it's much more about the location. So a shot like this says something like, it's a house in the woods surrounded by nature, with a dirt road leading to it. It's important to know it, because if a client says, I want you to show the architecture of my house, this is not the shot for it. It shows, of course, some of the forms. In this version, maybe it's even a bit more visible because of the nice color contrast between the greenery, the surrounding greenery, and the beige and gray tones here. But still, this is not about the architecture. It's a shot which is about the location of this house, the way this house becomes a part of nature, how close it is to nature, but not about the house itself. There is nothing wrong with that. It's just to know what you're doing and in what cases what's the right approach. Now, regarding the overcast version, I already mentioned it. This one is maybe a bit more architectural. It has this stronger color contrast to the surroundings. The volumetrics are quite nice. We see the distance fog here behind the first row of trees, which is also pretty cool. Personally, I miss the positive vibe from this shot, also the dynamic of it, and also with lighting like this, some issues become visible. I think that you have some grass clipping through the stone here, which isn't visible in this shot, or not as visible in this shot because of the strong shadows. Let's move on to the second shot, which is just an amazing one. I love this shot. It's so gentle and minimalistic. The composition is awesome. The framing is just wonderful. And the storytelling to it, because it's not like if the curtain was fully closed, it would be one message. If the curtain was fully open, it would be a different message. The way it is now, you see how it partially covers the light here and even parts of the bed. It's like, hey, you are allowed to take a quick glimpse into this otherwise private area, and then you can move on. And this is, I think, the absolutely right message of a shot like this. Next, we have the exterior in two versions. Here, it's the same. I would say the overcast version is more architectural. It's more informative. It nicely showcases topics like materials, material colors, forms, and so on, while the sunny version, to me personally, is more vivid, more emotional. We have those really nice contrast switches. We have here a bright area, a dark one, bright, dark, bright, dark. You see, it's always this switch which adds a layer of dynamic to this shot, which I enjoy a lot. Next, we have the living room. We have this awesome backdrop. We did a really great job with this forest, because I often see artists just make the, let's say, first 1 or 2 layers of trees around their building. And if you look underneath their crowns, you actually see in an area like this, you see where the model ends, and you even see the horizon line or just plain white or something. But in this case, there is this awesome depth to the forest, which is very important for a project like this, because again, the main goal of it is this living in the forest. So the framing is nice, the composition works. Personally, I find this wood on the ceiling to have a bit of a too strong pattern, maybe almost distracting. So I imagine that it could be maybe a bit better if we have just a plain, simple white ceiling, or maybe other planks that don't have such a strong patterning to them and are just kind of more secondary, maybe also brighter. I tried this with a brighter ceiling, then it looks like this. Gladly let me know what you think about this version. Which one do you prefer, this one or this one? I'm sure the wood on the ceiling is something which comes from the client side and something that Alireza had to implement because this was just a part of the project. But just thinking in perspective, this is a situation where if this was my project, I would actually go back and just change this texture for, again, a more subtle one or a white one, and then re-render it before posting. This is just me though. Okay, let's take a look at the next shot. We have the kitchen counter shot. I really like this one. It has some sweet depth of field to it. We have a pretty clear focus despite the very wild background. Let's go it like this. Framing wise, however, the cropping can be extended downwards a bit because, as you can see here, the object in focus, the object of interest here is actually the kitchen counter with the chairs. Now, it's not a big deal that you cut through this second chair because you already have one chair which is visible as a whole here. So cutting through the second one isn't an issue because everybody knows how it looks like, how the cut part looks like, right? But here, given that this is like the main eye catcher, the main actor in your scene, it shouldn't be that much squeezed in the corner. So if this is your original, I think that extending the cropping downwards a bit will give your main actor a bit more room to breathe, as we like to call it in this group, so that it sticks out more and actually becomes more important without this cramped feeling of being squeezed in the corner. And next we have this gloomy, or let's call it not gloomy, but maybe overcast version of the living room. It's okay to have it. Well, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, I don't enjoy it as much when I have to go through both because, you know, take a look at this image. This has something like, because of the blue sky and because of the warm sun, it has a bit of this warmish feeling to it or tonality to it. And then we have those images which have a bit more of this greenish tint to them. So, you know, by mixing those images, you don't really add much further information for the viewer, but you start becoming visually inconsistent because of the different tonalities they have. So again, if this was like an evening image, it would have been a different thing. But given that this is more of a, like, just a slightly, like it was sunny just a moment before, and now the sun is behind one of the clouds, and it's suddenly, it's not additional information. It's not needed in my opinion. So general piece of advice, go with one of the two moods, the overcast or the sunny one. It's up to you. Everybody likes different things. Some people prefer overcast lighting when it comes to architecture. I'm always a fan of sun because I think it gives this positive vibe, but there is no right or wrong here. It's just opinions, but decide and go with what you've decided. Next, we have the bath, which is a very nice scene with some really good lighting. It seems like you have some lighting up here, which is pretty cool and very convenient for a bathroom, especially a bathroom that, let's say, doesn't have a window or some other source of natural lighting. Also, the modeling looks pretty cool. Just a small piece of advice. It seems like you made the tiles here with floor generator, with rail clone, whatever. Technically seen, because again, we don't only want to make stuff that looks pretty, but also stuff that makes sense. It's about the overlapping here. So the tiles that overlap the most are these up here, because this is where water comes from above and they are meant to protect all the other tiles. Then it's those one, as you see, as you have depicted it, and those here, which seem to be on the side of the others, should actually be pushed in so that have the same surface as the sides of those two. This is just a small technical aspect, but yeah, nevertheless, it makes sense. And maybe, generally speaking, regarding the framing, you can zoom out a bit so that we can maybe see the whole shower area or something like this. But other than that, it's pretty cool. And then the last shot is this rose close-up, which is, yeah, good model, sweet depth of field, nice, clean image without noise. It's just awesome to look at. And generally speaking, we're back in the beginning. This is one really cool project. It makes very much sense that Chaos Corona shared it on their page, because it's awesome. And again, you're more than welcome to share a bit. You saw that was this question by Alessio. So if you watch the recording, if you're still there or in future, you can just share some further information or some how-tos about this project, how you did the street, for example, the transitions between the, let's say, dirt area with the plants and the street area and so on. It would be awesome, because we all could profit from this. Thanks, and let's move on to the second project, which is a project by Mohammed. He's a new member of the group. We have actually a lot of new members today, which is actually awesome. We don't always want to talk about the same handful of people. It's more interesting if we talk about different folks every time, so that everybody gets their attention, right? It's really cool. Let's see what Mohammed writes. Hi, this is my new design. Hope you enjoy it. It's done in Max and Corona. Nice description. We know the software combination. We know that it's your design. What we don't know is if this is a commercial project or a personal practice of yours. If it is a practice, it is, of course, the attitude to this project and the feedback can change a bit, because it means if it is your own project, your own exercise, it means that you were the one who was completely in charge of all the decision taking about this project. So yeah, maybe we can just judge it a bit in a different way. So maybe in future, instead of all the hashtags here, just add a bit more project info. What if it was like, let's say, a personal project? What aspects did you want to train? What did you want to learn? What did you challenge yourself to? And so on. Regarding the image presentation, I find it to be visually consistent and also nicely varied. So this is pretty cool. Now let's take a closer look. Generally speaking, to me, this is one of those simple yet clean and pleasant scenes. The modeling looks fine. I have nothing wrong to say about it. It seems precise. It seems to have the right amount of detail. It's just cool. The only thing I saw is that this hand here, I think in the beginning I thought that it's on the shelf, on the TV wall, but on the second shot it seems like it's hovering in the air, so maybe you want to fix that. But other than that, modeling looks good to me. Same with the materials. They behave and look in a convincing way. I like them. Also, they fit together very well. The design is a bit of a mixed bag. Now, if we take a look at this design in terms of communication, the people who live there and maybe their guests sit down to talk, 2 people on the couch, 2 in the armchairs. It works, definitely does, and it's an awesome situation. However, what we see here on the wall is this TV. And obviously this TV isn't a secondary element. You know, sometimes you can hide the TV behind some of those doors. And this is usually something that people do that don't use the TV that often. They don't play PlayStation games, they don't watch Netflix so much. Maybe they watch the news occasionally, and that's why they have a TV, but it's not one of their, main objects in their household. In this situation, however, you see that the TV has its own place, which means that it's kind of important. However, if you try to imagine watching this TV, you will see how inconvenient this is, because if you sit on the couch or sit in this armchair, you literally have to tilt your head 90 degrees to the left or right accordingly in order to be able to see the TV. So the only place which makes it possible for you to see the TV is actually this armchair, and this is very far away from the screen. So when it comes to media usage, the design here really isn't good. Like, the only thing you can do is actually lie on the couch and watch TV. So I like that the TV is not in the middle of this scene directly above the table, because this would be like maybe very staged looking symmetry, but it would be more convenient to use. The way it is depicted now, it simply isn't that convenient. And this is something one has to consider. Now, I think that topics like lighting and framing we can discuss by watching at the shots one by one, and that's what we will do. So we start with this one, which represents the whole scene. I think that the lighting here definitely works. It makes for a clear image. It gives some really nice contrasts. Just take a look at this one. We have the dark side of the chair and then the highlighted edges of the other chair. Really nice, strong, bold contrast. Also, I really enjoyed the gradient that you have achieved on this wall in the back. It could just disappear into darkness, which would have given this whole situation a not very nice mood, to be honest. But the way it is now, it suggests that there are other rooms in the back that you can approach with this corridor. On the flip side, the lighting is, let's say, a bit on the safe side. It looks like this classic white plain lighting, which is okay. But first of all, in the meantime, I feel it is overused. And secondly, it is kind of emotionless. And, emotion is actually something you actually want to transmit with your images. So my suggestion to you would be to take this scene. It seems like a lightweight scene, not like something which is 2 gigs and renders forever. My suggestion for you is to actually take this scene the way it is and then just drop in all the HDRIs that you have. There are multiple sources. You can buy HDRIs. You can get HDRIs from free from Polyheaven. There are tons of HDRIs in the Chaos Cosmos library. Just try them out one by one and see if you cannot achieve maybe a more emotional, a more atmospheric image instead of always going for this classic white light. The framing works well. We have this nice central perspective without this central symmetry, which I really like. There's good compositional balance here, and I really like how you solved the issue with the areas which are a bit more monotonous, like the ceiling, for example. First of all, the ceiling is kind of empty, but what you did is you have this texture which has some nice structure to it, which is always a good solution. And the second thing is this texture is also nicely reflective. And with its reflectivity, it actually picks up some of the colors, some of the contrasts given down here, and transfers them to the ceiling. So instead of a boring white ceiling, we have some structure, A, and B, we have some color bleeding, we have some contrasts, and it actually becomes interesting. And this is really probably the best way to deal with monotonous surfaces. If they have some reflectivity, if they have, let's say, some own pattern and so on, then they can still be very interesting and exciting. Now let's take a look at the second shot, which is the chair shot. And I think that in this case, the framing can be improved. First and foremost, I think we need to clarify that this is actually a furniture shot. Why? Because there is no real storytelling to it. It could be a storytelling shot, but then it needs to look different. Like, I'll show you this example here. You see how here we have a storytelling shot. We have this armchair that looks very comfy, but you see it's not about the armchair because parts of it are already cut. It's about the storytelling element and the importance of this armchair where somebody gladly sits down, covers themselves with a blanket and reads a book with their glasses on, right? This is what we see here, and this is why the central fragment is here, and actually nothing out of the main actors of this scene is being cut off. The chair is just the setting for the storytelling. Now, in your case, there is no storytelling. This is just a piece of furniture. It's a nice chair, but if I were you, I would ask myself, is this chair exciting enough for me to dedicate a whole image to it? For me personally, even though I like the chair, I think that the answer is no. Also, the image is kind of unbalanced. If you take a look at it, on the left side we have a ton of stuff happening. We have all the books and the stuff in the shelves. We have the bottles on the table, and on the right side is just a plain wall and a plain floor. So obviously it's not really nicely balanced, and my suggestion for you with a shot like this would be either add some storytelling to it, then you can maybe rotate the camera a bit to achieve something like this. You see we have blurred out items in the foreground here as well, but we can still focus on the storytelling items. Or alternatively, just zoom on something else which is maybe more exciting for the viewer. I mean, if we take a look at the stuff which is here on the shelves, maybe this thing here or this thing could just make for a more interesting image rather than, a simple chair. And regarding the lighting of this second shot, I would say it's okay, but it can be optimized because, again, this is a furniture shot, so it's like a product shot. And if you have product shot, you don't usually have like only one main light source, as in your case, but you also gladly have a fill light somewhere to the right so that those shadowy sides aren't so dark. And most of all, in this case, you have a backlight somewhere behind the chair that highlights the contours of it, which is also missing. And last but not least, when we're talking about tone mapping, and this is a topic that we'll have a few more times in the show today, you have this very pronounced tone mapping. And there is nothing wrong with that, but you need to know that very strong, very pronounced and visible tone mapping is more of a style, which means when you have a style to your images, style is very subjective. So this means that one group of people may like it a lot and others not so much. In this case, you went with this type of tone mapping which produces this gritty, moody atmosphere. It fits the situation. I personally like it because I like dark stuff and so on, but if I was a client, I wouldn't like it that much because this is not an atmosphere that really sells. And in a modern apartment like this, it isn't really needed. If you had some old cabin in the woods or some, vintage apartment, and then you had this tone mapping on it, then it would fit the mood, it would fit the situation and enhance it. In this case, however, you have this very modernistic living, and which means it is aimed at people here and now. And I think that having this almost depressive mood to it doesn't quite suit it, especially in terms of selling this to other people. And with this being said, it's one cool project that I like. Just in future, try to pay a bit more attention to the functionality of your design. We saw here with the TV and the mood you're setting. You just have to have a clear goal. Who are you doing this for? Is it just for yourself, for fun? Or do you want to maybe get some clients with this project being in your portfolio? Because if you want to get clients with this, I don't think that, let's say, this kind of tone mapping and lighting is the right thing to do. Anyway, I am looking forward to your projects in future. I see Alireza said, thanks Theo, it was your pleasure. It was my pleasure as well. Thanks for sharing. Looking forward to your future projects, Alireza. Next we have Bruno Bravo. If you're in the comments, man, is this your real name? It's a really cool one. With recreation of a work by Ander Alencar. You know, in the beginning I mentioned Ander and said that we'll be talking about a work of his. Well, Bruno decided to recreate his Iceland cabin and we'll take a look at it. Let's see what Bruno has to say. A rendering study based on Ander Alencar's images. Description is obviously okay, this is what it is. The type of project is clear, the goal of it is clear. What we're missing is the software combination. This is needed as an information, as an input on your side so that the feedback, or especially when it comes to maybe improving or giving ideas how to improve this and that, it's nice to know which software you're using. And also, you decided to recreate this cabin and you thought something, you had some ideas or goals or why you decided to do this challenge. And this is something which is always interesting to share, especially in an educational community like the Chaos Campus. Why did you decide to recreate this one? Obviously you found it nice and you wanted to recreate it, but there is certainly more to it. Maybe you wanted to recreate the atmosphere or the materials or whatever. So what were your main goals? It's always very interesting to know. And also when you recreate something, it's very cool. I mean, you mentioned that it is an image by Ander Alencar, but it would be cool if you could actually share a link to it so that people don't need to go and search for it. Bruno says he uses V-Ray GPU, 3ds Max and Photoshop. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Okay, image presentation otherwise is pretty nice. The images are pleasantly consistent. So yeah, I would say we'll make a direct comparison now between Anders' work and your work in terms of different topics like design, modeling, texturing, and so on, and see how you did. I'll open this on the side, and here is Anders' image. Before we start, let it be said that what you decided to do is a very challenging and difficult task, because this is a project which is heavy and difficult to reproduce. This must be said. It's a very challenging thing that you went with, but I think it's very courageous and very cool of you to do so. Before we talk about the design, let's just make something clear about these type of houses. These are so-called elevated cabins. They are very typical for countries like Iceland, where you have high and low tides. Sometimes the high tides become very high tides, so they reach areas like this area here, and if you have a house on the ground there, it will simply be flooded. And this is why it gets elevated on platforms, so that when the high tide becomes really high, the house doesn't get flooded. So much about the essence of this type of situations. Now let's take a closer look at the design of Anders' house. So it's pretty highly elevated. As you can see, it's probably, I don't know, difficult to say, but probably almost 2 meters, 1.80 m, something like this. We have a small porch in the front, which is very cool because first of all, once you're up in the stairs here, you don't just fall into the house, but you have this platform to step on before you enter the house. And also, when the weather is fine, you can actually maybe take a chair and put it on the outside or something like this. We have this full glazing towards the waterfront, which obviously makes a lot of sense. People built these cabins there because they want to be close to the water and want to see the water. This is the main goal of them. So it makes sense that you have this full glazing probably facing the water, and then this full side glazing also facing the waves. What I miss here maybe is a bit of a clear entrance, like an entrance door that you can unlock, because I know that crime isn't especially high in Iceland, but I still think that people need some door with a key, which isn't really visible here. Let's take a look at your work. In your case, the elevation from the ground, the platform isn't that high. It's maybe, I don't know, meter 10, 20, something like this. But I guess that's okay, because in different areas, the high tides are different. So I think that's okay. You have no porch. You decided to go with no porch, which I think is a bit of a pity, because again, in order to unlock the door, because this is one of the good things that I really like, you actually have an entrance door that one can unlock to enter this. But without the porch, in order to unlock the door, you should stay on this very last step and just be like, yeah, I have to unlock my door. It's not really convenient. And also, if you had a porch, you could make the door open outwards, like towards the porch, which would mean that you won't be wasting some of the very scarce space that you have on the inside, because the way it is now, the only way you can open this door is inwards, which means that you have this bright door which opens inwards, and you immediately lose the first 1 meter of your, again, very scarce space, right? So the missing porch is not a good thing in my book. And the second thing which I dearly miss, and I think is a bit of a pity that you don't have, is the full glazing facing the ocean, because now you have this house which was built by people who enjoy water and want to be there, but you took their main view in order to show them the beach, but not the water. So yeah, this is a bit of a pity. Other than that, I think it's cool. Let's go back and talk about modeling. Now, what I very much like about Anders' house is how visible the construction is. Just by looking at this image, you can immediately see the structure, the skeleton of the house. So you have those wooden frames, and then atop of them you have those metal sheets that protect them from weathering. And it's like immediately visible. You also see the platform here and the stairs, and everything makes a lot of sense. Also, there are a ton of details. You have the chimney here, you have this sheet metal which is protecting the hole, which, you have a hole in the roof in order for the chimney to come out of, and you have this sheet metal which is protecting this. You have all those pipes, the copper ones and the gray ones. I'm not sure how much sense they make, but they certainly look cool. There are nice imperfections. If you take a look at the modeling, you see that the edge of this sheet metal here is kind of wavy, so it's not like perfect. The interior is hinted, so you see some bedroom or something, and also the surroundings, of course, they look very, very authentic, and this is, I think, very, very awesome. In your case, the construction, I think, makes sense. If we zoom in a bit, I find it makes sense, it works. It lacks this nice clear structure that you can clearly see here. You kind of don't have it. Everything is here more compact and not so clear. And also you're missing those details like the chimney, the pipes. You have some exterior lighting though, which is pretty cool. You also have hinted an interior, and I actually like what you've hinted here. I cannot quite see it, but I see this table. This could be something like a writer's cabin, which I think would very much fit the Icelandic flair in this case. Also, your surroundings I find to be very convincing. They are kind of generally a bit colder, not so lively like Anders, but still they look very nice and convincing in my opinion. Let's take a look at the materials on Anders' work. The cool thing about those materials is that they are very clear and distinguishable. You see, maybe it's even a bit over the top, because the patterning that you see here is just so strong, but they are very pleasant to look at because you can clearly see the differences between them. Like you have this type of wood and a different type of wood down here. And also what we see are some really cool weathering effects or wet effects here that we see on this base and also on the stairs here. You also have pretty nice weathering effects visible on the stairs. Also your planks on the side show some weathering, which I think is also pretty cool. The material appearance in general is not as clear as others, and I'm kind of missing the clarity, but generally your materials leave a pretty decent impression, especially when it comes to the surroundings. I like them a lot there. When it comes to lighting, I would say the lighting on both images is probably fairly similar. In your case, in Anders' case, it's maybe that this one is kind of better exposed and the sky here is more dramatic in direct comparison, but yours also fits the location as well. So I think this is a good one. Framing wise, this must be said, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but Anders' house is like, this project to me is like a masterclass in photography. The shots here are just amazing. So what I will really recommend to you is to study them really carefully and try to recreate them as exact as possible. Now, when it comes to the topic of tone mapping, I would say that the tone mapping here, we just talked about this on the previous project. The tone mapping here is almost not existent, right? It's just photorealistic and that's it. There is almost no tone mapping which sets some kind of a different mood. In your case, however, I would say especially it was very visible on this second shot. You see how you went with this for moody, gritty tone mapping. And again, this leaves photorealism a bit aside and becomes more of a style, which in this case, I think it very much fits this typically gloomy, overcast Icelandic atmosphere and vibe, but at the same time, it's not as realistic as Anders is, right? And now so I think this is more or less it if we make this direct comparison. In conclusion, I would say you took a very heavy challenge and you did a very decent job with it. A general piece of advice or two pieces of advice from me: don't recreate renderings, because a rendering is already a rendition of reality seen through the perspective of another artist. So when you recreate that, you make a rendition of reality, which is one layer too many. Instead, recreate photography, because photography depicts reality, and then you can try to get as close as possible to it by recreating it. And it's only a one layer or one tier rendition, so to speak. And the second thing is, when you recreate something, carefully analyze it. Be sure to know exactly what made you recreate, what caught your attention, what excited you on the original project, and try to capture this. By the end of today's show, we will talk about one project where this is very nicely done, where the artist did some really good analyzing work and managed to do exactly what he's supposed to do in order to capture the essence of the original. But if you do it again, the structure, the visible structure, the architectural detail is a huge aspect of this project. And this is something that one only knows if you spend the time to actually analyze it before starting. I think you did a very good job on analyzing the surroundings and recreating them. And the same thing you need to also do with the house, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm looking forward to your next work. It's, I think, the second project of yours that you shared in this group since you became a part of it. So yeah, keep it up. I see Flatson joined us. Hey man. Also, Alireza says, it is modeled, but I also use procedural and layered material. I also scattered many details such as stones and other details. Yeah, to achieve something like this, you need to put a lot of work. That's for sure. Next, we have Navid. And we won't be talking so much about Navid's work itself. We will be talking about the exciting cinematic shots he shared with us and the very cool technique that he used to create them. So I'll read what you wrote, which isn't much. It's like cinematic interior design and CG artist is Navid and Rahmat. On the second project, it's only Navid. So while the image presentation is really awesome, visually consistent, nicely varied, and generally very exciting because of the way those images look, your project description is kind of lacking, admittedly. So in future, please, Navid, tell us more about the project, the type of project, commercial or personal. And if you experiment with stuff, which I know you do, I know you're from the VW Art Club, I have given you feedback there as well. If you experiment with something, especially in a group like this, which is also a lot about learning and profiting from each other's experiences, gladly share more info on this so that everybody can profit from it, okay? And now we'll take a look at those shots and see what's so special about them. So, you see these are very cinematic looking images, mostly also pretty nicely framed. They have a very pronounced tone mapping. As you see, this is like a big topic today. And again, this is a subjective matter. I would say the more present the tone mapping, the more visible the tone mapping, the more realism it takes away. However, let's not forget, photorealism is not the ultimate answer. If it was, every single photo taken with a smartphone, every movie that was shot out there would have been a masterpiece, right? Because they're always photorealistic. It's not like this. There is something what we call style, and tone mapping is a big part of it. And sometimes the right style can absolutely outweigh just pure photorealism. So, but just think about the topic of tone mapping, because we had it a few times today. Just think about it a bit in perspective and just know what you want to achieve. Now back to the images, you certainly see one thing, and this is that the depth of field on those shots looks kind of strange. It looks almost like motion blur, right? Let's take a look at all of them. I think this is the last one here. We can also briefly take a look at this one as well, because I like this. We have here really nice effects, and this one is just picturesque. I love this. I would frame it and put it on my wall, to be honest, but we want to concentrate more on this one and the depth of field effect that Navid has used here. And the clue here is that Navid has added anisotropy to the depth of field of his camera. Now he has used Vantage to create those shots, and in Vantage you have the depth of field tab, and in it there is the anisotropy field that you can change the value of. If you do this, if you want to do the same in V-Ray or in Corona, I'll show you where to do it. It's in the bokeh effects. So you see it here, anisotropy in V-Ray, and in Corona, again, it's in the bokeh effects. You can also use a custom aperture shape with a map. There are maps online that you can use in order to achieve such effects. And now the thing is, what's the goal of this anisotropy setting? What does it do? And what it does is to simulate anamorphic camera lenses. And what are anamorphic camera lenses, you ask? Well, they come from movie making. They're very popular there. And this is why they deliver such cinematic shots. And I'll have this article for you where you can do some reading on it. But there are some really, really cool comparisons between spherical lenses and the anamorphic lenses, and I will show you one of those so that you can see the difference, and you will see why it is so beloved in movie making and why this is something you may want to experiment for your own shots with. So let me scroll down here, and then we'll watch this video. I'll remove the music and just take a look at the girl. So you see up here, you see her with spherical lens, and down here with anamorphic. And you'll see how much more concentrated the focus is on the girl, especially walking through the city where there is a lot of stuff, a lot of other people, how much more we concentrate on her in comparison to the spherical images where everything else still is quite contrasty, quite grippy, while here you see it's kind of blurry but with some motion to it and in a different way. And you can also define the direction in which this motion blur happens, which is really, really great. So I really suggest try to do some reading on this topic, go through this article, watch the videos, and then maybe on a close-up of yours, or maybe create a new scene for this and experiment with it, because anisotropy can really change the way especially your vignettes and your close-ups look like. And back to you, Navid. It's awesome to see you experiment with different techniques, with different compositions, tone mappings. It's inspiring. So please keep sharing those in the group. Just tell us a bit more about what you experimented with, what you wanted to achieve, maybe about your references, the way you achieved something, because everybody will profit from that. And it is really awesome. And you will be their teacher. That's cool. Okay. Next, we have Davood. Davood is another new member of the group. I don't think he is with us here today, but he writes, "Hi, this is my first post here. Design and rendering is done by me. I've used 3ds Max, Corona, and a bit of Photoshop. Let me know what you think about it." Thank you. Very informative and kind description. The only info missing here is if this is a commercial or a personal project of yours. As for the image presentation, it's quite good. I see nicely varied angles, great visual consistency among the images, so pretty good presentation. Now let's take a look at the shots one by one. Maybe generally speaking, we can go through them quickly. Modeling and assets look really fine on this project to me. Material wise, it's also pretty much the same. Nice color scheme, maybe not incredibly exciting one, but still it's very harmonious. The lighting does a good job in this scene, and also I really like the way natural and artificial lighting mix. It feels very natural. And now we can actually go back to the first shot and take a look at the images one by one, starting from this view from the kitchen towards the dining and living room. It's a nice central perspective. It's informative. It gives a bit some info about the connection between the different spaces, but it is very unbalanced. Let's analyze it together for a second and take a look at it. So first of all, there are, let's call it, two parts of this image, the 2/3 on the left and the 1/3 on the right. And in these 2/3, a lot is happening. So we have the dining table, we have the couch, we have the TV, the rack, the lamp, those two lamps here. So you see there is a lot of stuff, while on the other side there is just this wall rack, and that's everything. So obviously this is pretty unbalanced. So my suggestion for a shot like this would be, you don't have to go for a central perspective. If we imagine that this is your room seen from above, so like a floor plan, and we have here the living room area and here the dining room area, and currently you have placed the camera here. Let me just take a different color maybe. Okay. Currently you have placed the camera like this. Okay, but this isn't optimal because you have this layering and this cluttered feeling. Instead, place the camera maybe here so that you can take a look into those zones like this. I think this would be the better approach in this situation. Next, we have this contre-jour shot of the dining table, which is a very cool cinematic shot. I enjoy it a lot. I like the contrast here. The depth of field on the wall also adds another layer of storytelling to this shot. I really enjoy it. Not sure about how much you have to cut the lamp, but this is something one has to experiment with and try out. Next, we have this CCTV fisheye shot from above, which is actually a very nice shot. It's very informative. It nicely shows the space flow. Maybe it would be better to have landscape ratio here so that you can actually show the whole kitchen in this shot and avoid those empty areas here. But this is again something one has to try. Next we have this close-up, let's go it from far up, which has some really nice depth of field to it. Maybe the composition is a bit slightly off because we have these dark elements to the one side. So if you want to keep the laptop turned off, you maybe need to take it and the mouse and put them a bit to the right, or just turn it on and put something, your logo or whatever, something on it, or your client's company's website on it. I don't know. Next we have this shot which I like. This is the couch from above. Really cool. Again, how authentically the natural and artificial lighting are mixing here. Now, design-wise, there are 2 points that I'm not quite sure about. First, it's the positioning of the coffee table. I think it's way too close to this part of the couch. I would move it to the right as a whole so that you have the same amount of space or the same distance between those cushions and those cushions to the coffee table. And the second thing is the way this lamp is currently placed. It is actually blocking the access to this window area. So my suggestion would be to actually take the lamp and place it here in this corner. This way it will be able to illuminate this part of the couch or the other part of it, and it won't be blocking the way to the windows anymore. Next we have this shot, which is like the dining table from above, and actually a nice idea. I like this one because you have a lot of bright elements and then these 2 really dark black elements, which is pretty cool. However, you have cut off one of your 2 main elements. Your 2 main elements are the lamp and obviously this table with chairs, but you cut off the legs of the chairs, which isn't a good idea. So as you can see, this way it looks way better because your main actors fit as a whole inside, and then the shot looks very good. Next, we have the living room. This angled view of the living room, which generally is a good angle, but what you can see here again is an issue that we had with the very first image, is that we have those layers and layers of things in front of each other. So we start with the couch, then we have the dining table, then we have the windows, the lamps are too close to each other. So maybe here again it would be better if you put the whole camera to the right and go for a central perspective, maybe, which you did with the next shot, and I think it's a better one. It's also a clearer one, but again you have some issues here because you have those dark table elements, the chairs and the table, and they are in front of other dark elements, which is here the oven, the microwave, the coffee machine, and also here again those lamps are in front of each other, which doesn't deliver a really good composition. So maybe you need to put this lamp just elsewhere for a cleaner image, and you may even consider giving those dining table, chair and table combo just a different material, maybe wood, because if you had wood, you have the gray fabric here, then the wood material, and then you have white and black on the kitchen. So I think you have this color contrast, which will lead to a more easily readable image. And with this being said, I think we're back at the very first shot. This is a very solid first post of yours. Just pay more attention to the topics of framing and things like color and tonal contrast. And I'm looking forward to your next work. I see Arthur joined us. Hi man, in the beginning we talked about your new lesson. I still haven't watched it, but I will in the evening. You say, Theo, your beard got shorter and hair got longer. Yeah, I'm just pulling on it and then the beard gets shorter. Okay, next we have Hamed with a project which is actually very similar to the one that we just went through. Hamed is also new to the group, so another new member. I think this is his second project in this group. He writes, "Hi everyone, it's my new interior render. I hope you like that. It's my visualization and it's done in 3ds Max and Corona. So good description, only curious to know if this is a commercial or a personal project. And regarding the image presentation, visually consistent, also mostly varied angles, but also quite cramped. I gotta say, there is so much to look at here, which kind of gives a cramped impression, but let's take a closer look. Okay, generally speaking, I think we can already tell by this image, modeling, materials and lighting look fairly good in this project as well. The design does actually a pretty good job at merging different furnishing elements to one, I would call it, harmonious final outcome, which is great. I really enjoy this. So yeah, let's just start going through the images one by one, I would say. And we'll start with this angled living room shot, which I find to be a very good starter shot. I see balanced framing on it. I really enjoy the tonality variation, because if we take a look at it, you'll see that there are like maybe 5 different nuances of brown. So we have this brown, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, and if we count this one, there are even 6. And the good thing about them, they are different brown tones, but they belong together. They have the same tonality to them, just a bit of different saturation and brightness to them. And the thing is, this way it looks more lively and more authentic, because, you know, as 3D artists, we have our color control maps with which we can always try to match all the colors perfectly to each other, which is of course very nice, but sometimes it looks almost fakish, almost staged. While here, and you should also consider, people don't always buy their furniture, they just go with a part of the furniture and try to have the exact same color so that they buy a new piece of furniture. They just maybe see one brown couch here and another brown couch there, and then a brown chair and then a brown table, and then they put them together, and as long as the tonality matches, it's actually, I would almost call it nicer the way it is depicted here, as if all the browns were the same. So not much else to say about this one. Maybe you could have extended the cropping like a notch to the right so that this whole bust fits in, but yeah, that's a bit nitpicky. Second, we have the living room central perspective, which to me is actually another nice framing. Recently, I had a discussion with Flatson on this topic about, because, you know, cutting off elements, I often say don't cut off your main elements, but truth is you gotta cut your framing somewhere, you gotta do some cropping. But I think as long as you're like, there is a composition which is like this balanced nice composition somewhere, which in this case to me is something like this, or if you want to extend it, you can put in the chair, but you can also cut off the chair. This composition still is one which works, so it's not an issue that the table is cut off or the piano or something like this. You just don't cut off your main compositional elements, your main actors. Now here, it seems like you placed your sockets just atop of the wall and call it a day, which obviously doesn't look the way it is. So what you can do if you want to easily fix this is you can do it with distance opacity map, and I can quickly show you this. So you see, I mean, it's alive what we have now, so everything is a bit slower, but I hope it still works. I hope you can see this. So you see we have a situation with those 2 sockets, and as you see, the one socket is properly placed while the other one is stuck in the wall, the same way it was in your case. Now, why does it work with this one? Well, it does. I'll just stop it for a second. It does because this one I actually cut a hole in the wall for, while the other one is just placed atop of the wall, which, yeah, obviously this is the very nice solution. However, if you have a wall which already has lots of holes in it for windows, doors, niches or whatever, at some point the wall geometry can become a bit too much. So if you place a socket like this and then you want to, let's say you move the whole table that you just saw here, you want to move it a bit to the side or elsewhere, and then you have to remodel the whole geometry, which in some cases can be inconvenient. So what I do in such cases, and which delivers me the same result, is just the following. I'll just stop it here once again. So you see in this floating window, I have this right socket and I just made a box behind it. It's just a simple box, nothing else to it. It's non-renderable object that I just out-xed in order for it to become transparent, and I called it socket air opacity. Okay, so let's just go back to our scene and take a look at the materials. And this is the wall material. It's a fairly simple material. We have a diffuse color, we have glossiness and bump, and that's everything that is to it. So what we will do now is we will add a corona. In my case, it's corona distance map, just here. In this distance map, we'll play the plus in order to place this socket air opacity box as a distance from object. We'll go to color inside, we'll enable it, make it black, and then here we will make the distance from 0. And let's take a look at it, what happens. Of course, still nothing will happen because we haven't attached this corona distance map to the opacity channel of our material. But once I attach it, you will see that now we have a hole and it looks exactly the same as the other one, which we actually cut off the geometry. And the good thing about all of this is that if I group or link, let's say, the socket and the box, I'll group them. Now, it doesn't matter, I will call it just group 1, it doesn't matter. I can actually move this around to my liking, and it will always have a hole behind the socket holes. And this is a very easy way to deal with placing sockets in your scenes. So yeah, enough of this. Let's go back to this topic and talk about the next shot, which is another CCTV fisheye shot from the living room, which I actually very, very much like. It makes this whole apartment look like a kind of a private gallery or something, very artsy, and I like this. But again, you can see that it is quite full of stuff. Like here, this area is okay, but this area is definitely way too full. And also, remember, it's been a while now since the fisheye lens actually support depth of field, so you can gladly use it to take away some of the attention from your immediate foreground. Next, we have this dining table scene from the living room, and while the framing is okay, I think that we immediately see an issue here, and it is that we have again missing color contrast. So you see we have the wooden chairs and table, and behind them we have wooden, it's like even the same wood, bar stools. So at some point it's really difficult to distinguish which object is which, and this isn't really a good thing. So maybe I think a good solution would be just to have other bar stools, maybe more subtle ones, maybe more simple ones, just like a sitting area without a backrest, and maybe in white, so that this thing here can actually stick out. And also, again, in situation like this, use depth of field on the foreground, because the chair and the couch are unimportant in this case. Next, we have an up-close shot on the dining table. We have here the same issues as the previous shots because of how similar those two objects are, the chair and the bar stool. And also, like the vertical angle feels pretty strange here. It looks like the viewer is looking down, but the sides are still straight and we don't see the ceiling. I don't think this is a good one. There's almost like a small claustrophobic feeling here. So I think you should just extend the cropping upwards. Obviously, I couldn't remake the ceiling as you have it in your scene, but I think that this way the framing is just better. Next, we have this CCTV fisheye shot from the kitchen, which is actually pretty nice, very informative, but again, it's visible how full this area is. So again, if you try to imagine to actually exchange those bar stools for more simple, more smaller ones, which are maybe white, and maybe, I'm also not sure if this dining table is the right one, because a round table needs a certain diameter to it. So maybe you need to go for a rectangular table which is just doesn't have a large width to it. I think it would probably better fit the space here. Next, we have this shot of this chair and a bust, and this is a very undecisive shot, because what is this about? Is this about the bust? The way it is now, it is about the bust because everything else is being cut off. If it needs to also involve the chair, then you need to extend your cropping so that it becomes about the chair and the bust. If it's about the bust only, then you can maybe go for something like this, which is also about it. It's about the rule of thirds here, and you see everything else is being cut off, like the table, the couch, the wall art, the chair. The only things that are not cut off are the things here. So just think about, you don't always have to have the same aspect ratio on every shot. And then we have, I think, the last shot, which is the entrance shot, and it definitely looks too cramped. If you take a look at this area here, for example, it looks like you had to go sideways in order to reach the TV area or this bar area, which, by the way, is very nice, and you never dedicated a shot to it. So maybe instead of making a shot like this, make something like a close-up on this area with some nice couch with depth of field in the foreground. I think it would be pretty cool. And with this being said, another nice work. The first project that you shared was also pretty cool, but this is a project that you got a lot of, I think, some feedback to. This one is another very solid work of yours. Just pay more attention to framing and composition, and don't overstuff your spaces. Okay, I see Arthur says, that's what I thought. It's about me pulling off my hair and making my beard short, I think. Abdi says, no idea what it is, but this seems to be distorted, especially towards the statue. Pretty sure that it is an optical illusion. Chair and the small light on the table next to the statue seem also being affected. Pretty interesting look. Yeah, I think that this lamp just isn't spherical. I think this is more elliptical. This is why it looks so distorted. But yeah, there is some optical illusion here and there. Danushka says, you have no idea how many times I used a separate wall piece just to cut holes without going around the whole geometry. Awesome work around, Theo. Thank you so much. Well, you're very welcome. I know that this is like a stupid thing, but you know, if we want to be more realistic, and sometimes it's important for our clients to show where the sockets are planned in a certain apartment, then you have to actually place a lot of sockets. In this case, we will just, copy the geometry, and you need not to forget to add every other of those boxes that are in the wall to your distance from object so that it works. But yeah, it is the easiest way to do it, and the most flexible one, because you can then adjust the positioning of this socket the way you want it. Glad it was useful to you, Danushka. Okay, and with this we are by the last project for today, which is Simão's. It's a cool reproduction of an existing project, the Cube Courthouse. Simão writes, I want to share an amazing project called Cube Courthouse, designed by Shinichi Ogawa and Associates. I was so inspired by it that I decided to recreate it in 3D to enhance my artistic and creative skills. The attention to detail and unique design elements truly make this project stand out. I recommend reading the article on ArcDaily for more information and photos. I used 3ds Max, Corona Render, Photoshop and Stable Diffusion software to create something truly unique and exciting. I hope you enjoyed as much as I enjoyed creating it. Great description, all needed info is provided and even more. The image presentation also looks quite good from what we see here. Maybe it's not very varied, but it's awesomely consistent. We'll take a closer look at the shots, but let's first take a look at the original project. This is it. It's a strange one. I think seen from the street, it's actually quite cool. I love the simplicity here. The evening shot is also pretty cool, so Simão, you may consider recreating it as well. As for the interior spaces, they certainly are pretty cool, but there is something about those shots that, I don't know, they seem kind of cold and dead to me for some reason. Like maybe the people who live there haven't moved in still, so that's why it's so empty. But there is kind of too much white, too much sterility to this, that to my liking. But it doesn't matter. Nevertheless, it's a simplistic, minimalistic project, but we concentrate on its exterior. So this is the original. This is Simão's version of it, and I think we can immediately say that it's a very faithful recreation. The resemblance between the original shot and this one is really uncanny, even though like there are differences, especially when it comes to the surrounding buildings. I think that Simão managed to concentrate or to capture everything which is essential to this project, and it actually matters, because if you compare, you'll see that these two buildings look different in Simão's version, but everything about the building, even the cables here, look exactly like they should, and this is why the recreation is so faithful. The modeling and texturing are also very good. The modeling is really on point with very good attention to details, a lot of just attention put into recreating everything as close to the original as possible. The assets used are nice and fitting. Here on the second shot, Simão has used this Tesla with a Tesla case on it. I didn't know that something like this existed. I didn't know that it is still used nowadays. I'm used to Eastern Europeans in my childhood covering their cars for the winter and stuff like this. But nevertheless, it's like a very interesting asset, and I really enjoyed seeing it in this situation. I think it also really fits. Maybe you can consider, given that it's a Tesla that you can charge, maybe you can consider putting a Tesla charger somewhere here. They're usually sleek and minimalistic, so I think this will probably fit the house. The texturing also looks very good. The frosted glass you matched amazingly. Just take a look at this. It's like almost the same. And not only the color, but also the translucency of it. And the other materials also look good. Only up here in the original, this looks like just normal glass. Maybe it has some blue tint to it. And in your version, I think you used the frosted glass from here, which is why it's not transparent. So maybe you want to just change it for like regular glass. The lighting and composition are nice. Obviously they were given by the originals, but I think Simão still managed to actually give them his own touch. Like the shadows on the street, this is especially visible in the second shot. They make for a really nice framing. They make the building pop out nicely. Also this tree, which is on the side, it's firstly amazing how you managed to make it work, that in this, where we have the top floor, it's actually visible through a gap in the tree. And secondly, the natural framing here works really, really fine. So yeah, scattering wise, maybe this is the only criticism I have. Your grass looks a bit rough, a bit wild, but at the same time kind of too uniform. And also it shouldn't be here in the area directly by the entrance. As you can see here, they only have some gravel in this area, but it's not a big deal. And as for the AI part, which was used only for the people, so for this woman who wants to hug her probably daughter, I think it looks nice. It doesn't look too staged or too fakish. I would be curious to know if these were initially 3D model people which you pimped up with Stable Diffusion, or if, let's say, the whole people were completely added in post with the help of Stable Diffusion. But all in all, a great one, Simão. Really cool, really proud of you. I really like this one. And with this being said, we're at the end of today's show. We actually made it under 2 hours, despite all the stuff that we talked about. I see Abdi says, just a side info for those who are using Vantage, the map which they was using might not be supported in it. Here is a list of what Vantage supports. Yes, yeah, it's not an ultimate solution for Vantage. It doesn't work. This is something I really like, using distance map. I use it in a lot of occasions. So I hope that, I mean, there is no Vantage for Corona so far, so it's not an issue for me. But if there is Vantage for Corona someday. I really hope that this map is supported until then. Navid says, thank you for your time in the internal film project. I did all the modeling, texturing and camera work, and I got help from my good friend Rahmat for the design, which we did together. I did not have a reference in mind, and I reached these results by testing the options. I worked with SketchUp software to model the space, and then I worked in 3ds Max to arrange the objects and materials, and finally I outputted in Vantage. In future works I will give more explanations for future works. This is awesome, Navid. Exactly something like this. It helps a lot to understand, and you can also, when you experiment with a certain element like the anisotropy which you used on your shots, gladly share it, gladly maybe share a video or a tutorial on it, not your own tutorial, just a tutorial that you have watched or some reading that you did on this topic, or simply the results of it, and just mention it in the description so that people don't have to, look for how you created this, don't have to ask you, but can just go through your images and be like, oh, that's how you do something like this. Awesome. I'll probably do it on my own. Something like this, so that we can all learn and profit from each other, because this way we grow way quicker than if we have to just do everything by trial and erroring, or if we have to discover every topic on our own. To be honest, I have experimented with aperture maps, but never with anisotropy, and seeing your images inspired me, and I'll surely be testing this out next time I render a close-up, so it works. And yeah, with this being said, don't forget, Thursday, February 22nd, the Arvis Masterclass with Nikos by Creative Lighting in Chaos. Next Tuesday, February 27th, the Chaos Next event online. And this Thursday, my dad's birthday, by the way, February 22nd, is the pilot episode of Avatar, not the Blue People, but The Last Airbender on Netflix. They'll probably screw it up, but nevertheless, if you liked the series, if you're a fan, the first episode of the live action remake by Netflix will air this Thursday, so you may want to watch it. And with this being said, stay safe, be healthy, have a good rest of the week and good 2 weeks until we meet again at the same place and time in 2 weeks. Rock on, my friends. It was a pleasure to hang out with you. See you soon. Bye.